King Charles and Queen Camilla welcomed U.S. President Donald Trump at Windsor Castle for his historic second state visit to the UK. President Trump and First Lady Melania traveled to Windsor via helicopter from London and were greeted by the Prince and Princess of Wales upon arrival at the royal residence. The Trumps landed in London from Washington, D.C. The Trumps landed in London from Washington, D.C. late Tuesday and spent the night at the U.S. ambassador's residence, Winfield House, before setting off for Windsor. In a sign of the pomp and pageantry to come, a guard of honor greeted Trump and First Lady Melania as they stepped off Air Force One at Stansted Airport near London. Trump is the first U.S. president to be invited for two state visits, after previously being hosted by Queen Elizabeth II during his last term in office back in 2019. While Downing Street has said Trump's visit would see the unbreakable friendship between the countries reach new heights, the mayor of London has hit out at the U.S. president. Sadeh Khan says President Donald Trump has, quote, done the most to fan the flames of divisive far-right politics around the world in recent years, in what will be considered to be a direct challenge to Keir Starmer's government to take a more robust stance towards Trump. Khan, in an article for The Guardian, said the president's use of the military in cities and targeting of minorities was, quote, straight out of the autocrat's playbook. U.S. President will meet Prime Minister Keir Starmer at his country residence on Thursday. Prior to Trump's arrival in London, a large anti-Trump demonstration took place. People protested outside Windsor Castle. Late Tuesday, protesters also projected images of Trump and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein onto the towers of Windsor Castle. The shots showed shortly before Trump's arrival in Britain included newspaper headlines and footage of the two men dancing together. The local police said 4 people had been arrested following the stunt in Windsor. All right, we are now being joined by Alexander Claxon, political analyst and founder of Global Political Insight think tank. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. So just shifting away from all the pageantry, in your opinion, can Starmer get President Trump to take a harder line with Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think it's quite unlikely that this will be the case for several reasons. Well, first of all, Trump's supporters, Trump's base, they, as you know, are against the continuation of the war and specifically the United States' involvement in the war. His base are essentially fed up of the United States continuing to finance the war in Ukraine. And primarily, therefore, Trump will listen to his base in the United States, the politicians that surround him, his advisors, and so on. And so in that regard, it's very unlikely that Starmer will have a significant influence on Trump's viewpoint on Ukraine. I think when it comes to the war in Ukraine specifically, it's the United States that holds all the cards rather than the UK. It's because of the United States that the Ukraine has been able to continue its war against Russia. And so I think in that sense, it's unlikely that Trump will change his opinion about Ukraine following his meeting with Starmer.
And for lack of a better term, how is the ghost of Jeffrey Epstein playing in all of this? Do you think it'll knock things off track a bit? It appears that this scandal is somewhat following the president to the UK.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the sticks that, let's say, critics of Trump can beat him with. And, in the United Kingdom, there are a lot of critics of Donald Trump. So first of all, the Labour supporters are highly critical of Trump. If you look at all the polls, Labour supporters do not like Trump at all. And I think even more broadly in the UK overall, it's a mixed reaction towards Trump. Obviously some people like him, some don't, but nevertheless there is a lot of skepticism towards him. And Jeffrey Epstein is one of the one of the ways that the critics can attack him. And of course, there is also that link with, alleged link with Prince Andrew as well, which obviously causes quite a bit of a controversy and for the British monarchy as well. But I think, beyond the protests and demonstrations, I don't think it's going to be a major issue when it actually comes down to the politics and the conversations between Starmer and Trump.
Yeah, very valid point. And on the other side of the coin, we saw the huge demonstrations in the UK in the last few days where Britons came out and they were protesting immigration policies. It was somewhat of a right-wing protest in Britain, some might say. Do you think that President Trump will talk about that?
Well, I mean, what I know is that Trump is somewhat supportive of these protests. I mean, not so much the protests themselves, but the idea behind them. And we also saw that Elon Musk was also did a video message at those protests as well. And of course, Elon Musk was quite a good friend of Trump before quite recently. But I think that's obviously a very much a sticking point. Because of course Starmer is against these protests and the message that they send, and so I think they'll want to avoid these conversations being made public if they do discuss them. I think from the UK's point of view, the priority for them is to get a good economic deal with the United States. Whilst for Trump, the priority here is to essentially look good for his audience in the United States, essentially look like a genuine statesman who carries a lot of weight globally. And I think both sides will not want their objectives to be destroyed by issues where they don't find common ground. And I think these protests that we saw in the UK is one of these issues where they do not find common ground. And so I think they'll try to avoid it, especially publicly.
Yeah, and one last question before I let you go. You talked about how important trade and economics is during this visit by President Trump. What to expect? Any breakthrough?
So from the United Kingdom's point of view, they want this tech deal to come through. Its amount is sort of around 30 billion pounds, which is obviously quite a significant amount. Obviously, the United Kingdom has been struggling economically over the recent years, and the standards of living have fallen, and they haven't really improved since Starmer has become prime minister. And so Starmer really needs to show that under his leadership, the UK is making progress on the economic front. And so for him, it's going to be really, really important that the UK and the United States can secure that deal, the technology deal, maybe some trade deals as well, so that Starmer can say, look, all this pageantry, all this money that we've spent to essentially invite Trump to our country, despite all the problems that we're facing economically, it was worth it. I think that's going to be the key for him. Otherwise, if it all falls through, then I think there's going to be a lot of anger among the UK population that this whole trip was organized for Trump, despite any successes.
Mr. Alexander Claxon, thank you so much for joining us on WION. Of course, we'll be following President Trump's trip to the UK very closely, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.